Hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. My guest is the brilliant show business author, Mr. Tom Lisanti, who's going to talk to us about the brilliant and lovely, wonderful actress named Carol Lynley. You've seen her in the Poseidon Adventure, in The Pleasure Seekers, in Under the Yum Yum Tree, in many wonderful films. And she was so much more than she was allowed to play on screen. And Tom is going to tell us all about the beautiful, wonderful, brilliant lady that Carol Lynley was. And we're going to discuss her legacy, which is very interesting. And here he is, Tom Lisanti. Hi there.
Hi, Diana.
So tell us about the beautiful Carol Lynley.
So I became a Carol Lynley fan in 1973. My parents loved going to the drive-in movies, and we would go. I think I remember going from like 1967. But my dad.
Where'd you grow up?
On Long Island. I used to
cool.
To the Westbury Drive-In,
Wonderful.
Comac Drive-In. There was a whole bunch of them at the time, and my dad didn't want to take us to the little kiddie movies, so he would take us. We would see Planet of the Apes, Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns. He would let me and my brother pick. We went to see Skyjacked and all those type of movies. Mm-hmm. But I wanted, for my 12th birthday, I was dying to see the Poseidon Adventure. The Poseidon Adventure, the Poseidon Adventure. It was like every kid wanted to see it. And it came out in December of 1972. My birthday was in May of 1973. And the movie was still playing in theaters all across the country. And we went for my birthday, and I got to sit in the front of the station wagon, and my brother and two sisters were in the back. And the movie started, and I had seen a lot of movies in the drive-in, but this one just mesmerized me. And the minute the ship turned over, I was like dumbfounded. I've never seen anything like that. I was just spellbound. Mm-hmm. And as the movie went on, for some reason, I connected with this pretty blonde who played the hippie singer who was just terrified throughout the entire movie. She was terrified, she screamed, and sitting in the front seat of my parents' station wagon, I was terrified for them. And when the movie was over, I turned to my mom and I said, who was the pretty blonde that played the singer? And she goes, that's Carol Lynley. She was in that vampire movie I told you not to watch last year, which was The Night Stalker.
I love that movie.
So I was like, oh, wow. And then shortly after that, on a Saturday night, there was a movie called Norwood. It was a road comedy with Glenn Campbell. And there's a pretty blonde who's traveling on cross country with him. She has short hair, lots of makeup. She was a hooker. She was foul-mouthed, funny. And the credits roll at the end. And it's Carol Lynley in a completely different part than she played as the terrified Nani. And I was hooked. And I started collecting scrapbooks. I would get the TV Guide a week before to see if she was on TV. And if she was on the Hollywood Squares, I would pretend to be sick so I could stay home.
I did that for Jean Harlow. I would take the day off, yes.
Stay home to watch her. I watched everything. I clipped stuff and everything.
And can I say something?
Sure.
You said it was playing all around the country. At that time, I lived in Spain. My mother died, so my father wanted to get rid of me so he could screw his girlfriend. And so he sent me to Spain with my maternal grandmother. It was playing all over Spain, and it was a mammoth hit, the Poseidon Adventure.
Yes, it made millions. It was the highest grossing movie in '73.
Yes,
it made like 42 million in just the U.S. alone. So I never thought in a million years I would write a book on Carol Lynley, but I'll jump to the mid-'90s. I'm working at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. They're doing a thing on horror movies, 100 years of horror films, and I joined the group to help put it together. And because I was a huge Carol Lynley fan, and she did horror and thrillers, I got her into the exhibition. And my friend Louis Paul said he had a fanzine, and he goes, why don't you do an article for my fanzine on her? And I did, and his wife said, this is good, why don't you send it to her, see if she'll talk to you. And I said, I have no credits or anything. She goes, no, why not? So I sent it to her, and one day I came home, and there she is on my answering machine saying she got my letter, and she would be willing to give me an interview. And that was my first published interview in 1997 with Film Facts magazine. It was The Many Faces of Carol Lynley.
You must have listened to it 2 or 3 times to make sure it really was Carol Lynley, yes.
And she was great. And then I did all these other books about other 60s starlets and stuff. And everyone kept saying, when are you going to do a book on Carol Lynley? And I said, I have to get to the point where I think I'm good enough to do a book on Carol Lynley, because I was still writing it. So finally, I decided to do a career retrospective. I wrote to her, never heard a peep. And then about a year later, wrote to her a second time, and she agreed to speak with me about her career, as long as I didn't do a bio and talk about her love life. Spoke to her twice, had a third interview arranged, and she passed away.
A heart attack, sadly, at the age of 77.
Yeah. So Carol came from those baby blondes of the late 50s. She was always Sandra Dee, Tuesday Weld, Connie Stevens, Yvette Mimieux, Diane McBain. They were interchangeable. I interviewed Diane McBain for one of my books, and when Under the Yum Yum Tree came out, her mother called her and said, "Oh my God, I can't wait to see your movie with Jack Lemmon." And she's like, "That's not me, Mom. That's Carol Lynley." Sue Lyon, in an interview, said she was tired of being mistaken for Carol Lynley.
Sue Lyon did not come to a good end.
Yeah, no. Carol Lynley said she was constantly being recognized as Carol Baker. When she met Carol Baker, she's like, "I've been signing autographs for you for years."
And vice versa, no
yes.
doubt, yes.
So they were part of that whole baby doll brigade that was really popular in the late 50s into the 60s.
Which today would get the producers thrown in jail.
Yeah. But Carol was a little savvy, and she had a Broadway background, and she didn't want to get typecast. She didn't want to be typecast as the ingenue. So she took parts like in Alfred Hitchcock Presents. She played a murderous teenager.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, and so she was able to escape. You know, she did become like more of a sex pot in the mid '60s under the Yum Yum Tree.
There was nothing else for a woman to do in those days.
Pleasure seekers, shock
Only
treatment.
Joan Crawford played scientists in those days, and axe murderers.
Yes. But then she got the Cardinal. Otto Preminger hired her to play the sister, the ill-fated Mona, and dies in childbirth. But then she always joked because Otto was so impressed with her acting, he cast her as her daughter. And Carol always joked around and said, "I'm the only actress on film that gave birth to herself."
There you go, yes.
And then came playing Jean Harlow, which could have, Carol did not like Harlow. This and the Maltese Bippy were her two least favorite movies. But at least she said, "I've seen Harlow." She's never sat through the Maltese Bippy with Dan Rowan and Dick Martin because she had a horrible experience with Dan Rowan.
What happened? You said
No. She was just mean, she said. And she didn't, Dick Martin was a sweetheart. She loved Dick Martin. But Dan Rowan was just, she said, mean.
He had a very troubled childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like shunted from foster home to foster home. Yeah.
So Carol's, at the time, we liked the Harlow, but at the time the critics did not like the Carol Lynley Harlow that much. And Carol's, in my book, I do give the reviews, the good reviews and the bad reviews. But Carol said her career survived because of Otto Preminger. He came along and he wanted her to play the mother looking for a missing daughter who may or may not exist in Bunny Lake is Missing. He had to fight Columbia. Columbia wanted Jane Fonda or Anne Margaret to play the part.
Well, Jane would have been good.
Yeah, but Carol, I think, she has that glacial look to her that you think, is she psychotic, the mother, or is she not psychotic?
And even though Jane Fonda comes from society, Carol has a little more class.
Yes. So she got good reviews. She got to play opposite Laurence Olivier and Noel Coward and Keir Dullea.
Noel Coward asks a policeman to whip him. It's an out there film, folks.
Yes, and she's the American mother. No one's seen the child. There's no proof the child exists. Laurence Olivier begins to doubt her sanity. She's going nuts trying to find any type of proof. Keir Dullea's helping her. Martita Hunt is the owner of the nursery, or the former owner of the nursery school where the child goes missing, or maybe not. It's a great supporting cast. Unfortunately, the movie came out and it was not as big a hit and as critically acclaimed as it is now. It's one of those movies that got reevaluated.
Yes. And also, that was the year of like the Yellow Rolls Royce and Harlow and other big films like The Sound of Music, I think. Also.
Yeah, Sound of Music, Dr. Zhivago.
Right, exactly.
And this was a small little black and white. Color was really bursting out, and Carol was very disappointed. And then come Academy Award time, Frank, the head of Columbia Pictures, decided they were going to push The Collector with Samantha Eggar and Trevor Howard, and not Bunny Lake is Missing.
Which is ridiculous.
Yes. But they did
and
put
it's
ads.
Totally psycho,
Yes.
The Collector.
Yeah.
It's really sick.
Yes. So then, Carol, she was hot, and then she decided to move to London. She did The Shuttered Room, and then really kicked around there. She left Hollywood at the wrong time. She wasn't established enough as a major leading lady to abandon
But she despaired. She thought she never would be. That's why she left.
Yes, and when she came back in about 1967, and she said in my interview that she wasn't a new face anymore.
Yeah.
So, and she said, I didn't begrudge like Faye Dunaway for getting Bonnie and Clyde and getting accolades, but she goes, I wasn't a new face, and she didn't get she wasn't aware that she was even considered for Bonnie and Clyde, but supposedly Warren Beatty saw her in Harlow and thought she had the perfect 30s look, and considered her, but she said, I never got the script.
Oddly enough, Carol Lynley in 1972 in the Poseidon Adventure looks younger than Faye Dunaway in 1967 as Bonnie Parker.
Yes, because by that point she was going that all natural. She wasn't wearing makeup as much, and she had the more natural, like flower girl, hippie-ish look. So when Carol came back to Hollywood, she was doing a lot of TV, and she did 4 movies in quick succession.
But the Night Stalker, the Poseidon Adventure, Harlow, these are films that will live forever.
Yes. 1972 was a banner year for her. It started with The Night Stalker, which was the highest rated made-for-TV movie.
I saw it that night. It was fabulous.
That's why I had nightmares. And my mom told me, don't watch that movie because it's going to give you nightmares. And it stayed the highest rated made-for-TV movie for years. And she ended the year in The Poseidon Adventure, which became the biggest box office hit of 1973. And so when I interviewed her, I said, well, Carol, after The Poseidon Adventure, 1973, your next credit isn't until the end of 73 in a guest shot on Orson Welles' Great Mysteries that was made in London. And she said the experience doing The Poseidon Adventure was exhausting. She said we were in these upside-down sets. We was soaking wet every day. She goes, for 4 months. They would come in, they get sprayed. The clothes, they had to make sure that they got dirtier and dirtier.
But they had multiples.
She wore her own boots, and they kept shrinking because of constant.
I didn't know that.
Those are.
But union rules say you have to have 6 copies of a costume if you're in a water scene.
Yes. Well, they kept switching out.
But the boots, no.
Yeah, the boots were her own boots. She said, and she said it was exhausting. She took time off to go to. After it finished, she took her daughter, and they went to visit her family in Ireland.
That's wonderful.
Just to wind down.
Did she make a lot of money out of the Poseidon Adventure?
She told me the only time she talked money was with the Maltese Bippy. She said she turned it down, didn't want to do it, but her agent and her manager were on her because she said at that time the money they were offering me was so much more than I normally got. And she goes, I stupidly gave in to the money. And she said I was treated, they shot it on the MGM lot, she said. They gave her this big dressing room. And
which may have been Jean Harlow's at one point, you never know.
No. And she said because of how unpleasant Dan Rowan was, she spent a lot of time in that dressing room.
I never would have thought that of him.
Yes, Dick Martin she loved, and because normally she said she likes to sit and learn from the other actors what they're seeing. So she would sit, behind the camera, but she said on the Maltese Bippy, a lot of it was in her.
I wonder what his problem was.
She just said he was a very unpleasant man, and total opposite from Dick Martin, who I think she dated a little bit, but stayed friends with him and was friends with his wife.
Did anyone help her? She had a daughter. She didn't have a lot of money. Could anyone have helped her to rear a daughter? Like, here's some money. Happy birthday.
Oh, well, she was on again, off again with David Frost for years and Oliver Reed.
But so was Diane Carroll, a lot of people were on again, off.
So, I mean, Carol, in my research on her, interviews she would give in the 70s, she pretty much said, I'm an independent woman, I don't need a man to support me. I'm a working mother, and she gave a lot of interviews about what it was like being a working mother with a child.
Yes.
And sometimes, she would have a nanny. I mean, she made money. I mean,
but she also spent money.
Yes, and she didn't. One of her biggest regrets was in the 70s when she was working a lot in Hollywood and making money, not buying a house in Beverly Hills because she lived at the Chateau Marmont for 4 or 5 years. Then took an apartment in Beverly Hills. So her daughter.
Question.
Sure.
I just got the feeling that some man was keeping her at the Chateau Marmont Is that the case?
Not then, I don't think. I think maybe, again, we didn't delve into her personal life too much.
Well, she told you that's taboo. Don't go there.
Yeah. So we really didn't. Yes, we didn't go there. The only thing I do know is she. Dallas came on, with those 5 episodes, and it wasn't a phenomenon at the time, and CBS was impressed with the ratings and decided to make it a full-time series. The first episode was a 2-parter with introducing Gary Ewing and Valine Ewing, and they handed Carol on a silver platter the role of Valine. And Carol had a trip planned with David Frost, and it coincided with the filming on location. She said, I thought it was just another guest spot on a TV show, and I turned it down, and Joan Van Ark got the part, and it went on for 14 years.
But now we know there's a Joan Van Ark, so everything, this universe knows what it's doing.
Yes, so that was one of her biggest regrets, and that had to do with a man.
In those days, you were encouraged. That was, all the magazines and books told you, what kind of monster are you? Give up your work for your man. Do anything for your man.
But what's interesting in the articles prior to that, she always claimed that she didn't, men didn't, she didn't defer to men. It was like it was her career, and
yeah, but a lot of men like that.
Right. But I think with David Frost, because of their schedules, probably, and they probably had this free time, and they booked this.
Yeah, sure, naturally.
And
also, he might have broken up with her if she'd said, "I'm doing this movie. Sorry, I'm doing a TV spot."
Right. Well, Oliver Reed, she did tell me that he never asked her a question about her career. It was always about his career. He talked about his career, but he said the only thing he asked her was when they saw the Poseidon Adventure, he said to her, "Is that really you singing?"
Is it?
No, that's another So Carol said she recorded a version of The Morning After, and they brought in Renee Allman, who was to help her learn how to hold a mic and stuff, and she recorded a version.
But Maureen McGovern?
No, Maureen McGovern doesn't come in, didn't have anything to do with the movie. And then Carol thought that Irwin Allen blended the two, her and Renee's vocals together. Renee Allman claims it's just her singing. The composers say it was just her. Irwin Allen never confirmed or denied anything. After the movie came out, that's when they got Maureen McGovern to...
Which was a monster hit in 1973.
Right. Yeah.
There's got to be a Morning After. It's a great song.
Yes, and won the Oscar.
And deservedly so.
Yes.
But anyway, how much time do we have? Oh, goody. We have 10 minutes. If you could sum up Carol Lynley's career, and what would you say?
I would say Carol's career is a career of stops and goes, and the reason I called my article on her The Many Faces, because she started as a teenage ingenue. She was right there with Sandra Dee and Connie Stevens. She was in A Light in the Forest, Holiday for Lovers, Hound Dog Man with Fabian. She played Allison Mackenzie, excuse me, in Return to Peyton Place. She had a good part in the Western The Last Sunset with Kirk Douglas and Rock Hudson. She gets married, has a baby, goes to New York, comes back to Hollywood in '63, and then all of a sudden we have a sort of a sex kitten, Carol Lynley, and Under the Yum Yum Tree, which is very funny, and she holds her own with Jack Lemmon. Shock Treatment, The Pleasure Seekers, which I love because of Pamela Tiffin.
I also, all through, it's great.
It's great. I mean, I can watch that.
Yeah, me too.
Does Playboy, then plays Harlow, the ultimate sex goddess, and then does a complete 180 as the drab, she's very drab in a raincoat, and her hair is pulled back as the mother looking for her lost child, and Money Lake is missing. And then all of a sudden in her career, she becomes like the heroine and damsel in distress. She does The Shuttered Room. She does The Maltese Bippy. Once You Kiss a Stranger was good. She plays the psycho Eris.
I have never seen The Maltese Bippy. I don't think I'm missing much.
No, you're not missing much, yeah. She looks great in it, and she's, fun, but yeah, it's you would think with Rowan and Martin, with Laugh-In, they would have done a wild and crazy movie, but it's just formulaic and just standard horror comedy.
Everybody was in it for the cash.
Yeah, cash, exactly. And then, in her career in the after the Poseidon Adventure, she goes that hippie route, and then, unfortunately, and then from 73 to 84, she just worked constantly on TV.
Good.
And she's really good in The Cat and the Canary. unfortunately, Carol had a lot of bad luck with her films with distribution. The Cat and the Canary was really good and should have gotten her
But
acclaim.
no?
It did. It got into a distribution fight with the distributor for the U.S. Played around the world, got great reviews. Carol got good reviews. They fought. They had to go to court. The distributor on that. The distributor who took the U.S. rights only wanted it, played it in Florida only, and said that was their they fulfilled their contract. The producer Richard Gordon took him to court, won, but it was by the time he won, it was 4 years later, in 1982. So the movie was it was too late for the movie. So yes, Carol had a career of ups and downs, but when she was on the up, for me, she was really
I agree, and she is the most versatile actress.
Yes.
I've ever seen.
Yes, like she said once, I played murderesses, nuns, whores, and neurotics, and she was not typecast. She was able to break typecasting.
I love Connie Stevens, but she always plays the same character.
Yeah, and I love Sandra Dee, and same thing with Sandra Dee. But Sandra Dee tried. A guy.
But no one would accept it.
Yeah, no one would accept it.
I saw her in a really good television movie in the early '70s. Joshua Cabe's Daughters.
Oh, the daughter. Yeah, the Daughters of Joshua Cabe. Yes,
Right, yeah,
yes. My friend Sean Chang. That's his favorite Sandra Dee performance.
It's a wonderful film.
Yes, he said.
And she's very good.
Yes, he said she's very
She's
very
a kleptomaniac rich girl.
Yes.
Who's no longer rich.
Yes.
And I think she's a prostitute.
Yeah, I think they were all something. They were all the three girls.
But I mean, I think she was always a prostitute
yeah.
who just seemed like a rich girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, yes. So, but Carol was able to overcome that. Her, Tuesday Weld, Yvette Mimieux were able to overcome their.
Yvette Mimieux became a producer, I think.
No, she was a writer. She started to write her own TV movies because she was give herself good parts.
Yeah.
And so, so I think Carol was underrated, and she just didn't have the luck of. Carol Lynley has two big movies: Bounty Lake is Missing and The Poseidon Adventure.
Well, and Harlow. That's good.
Yeah, and Harlow. Some actors and actresses don't even have one major movie.
And anyone who sees Peyton Place will have to see Return to Peyton Place.
Yes.
And The Pleasure Seekers. I think it's Jean Tierney's last movie, isn't it?
Yes.
So she's an immortal.
Yes. And the one thing about Carol Lynley is she never had anything bad to say about. Well, she had something bad to say about James Farentino, but everybody.
Oh, really? I thought he was so hot.
Yeah, no,
Why didn't she like him?
They did a TV movie called The Elevator, and they were the bad guys, and they had a car scene, and she said for some reason he just didn't like me from the minute we met, and they got into this big argument, and he raised his hand to almost hit her, and she said I should have reported him, but I didn't. She goes, I got out of the car, I ran so upset, and I ran right to Ronnie McDowell and Myrna Loy were in the movie too. And she goes, here I am, all upset. I'm like, oh my God, it's Myrna Loy. Because Carol is very respectful of the older actors.
Yeah, well, she was a very
Wendy Hiller and the Cat and the
mannered
Canary.
young lady.
I loved working with Judy Garland and Harlow, Laurence Olivier and Noel Coward in Bunny Lake is Missing, Flora Robson in The Shuttered Room. That's who she gravitated to.
If you report stuff like that, you're marked lousy.
Yeah.
And you're not going to work. You have to be a good sport,
Yeah.
you know? You have to take it.
Yes, with Farentino, yes. And she did, and she doesn't know what triggered him, what in her triggered him.
I always liked him so much, and I thought he was so hot.
Yeah, that was the only person she told me that she had a problem with, other than Dan Rowan, but that wasn't
I always
personal.
thought he was hot, too.
Oh, damn.
The guys I find hot, she hates. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, anyway, you can find out, now, what's the name of your Carol Lynley?
Oh, the Carol Lynley book is called Carol Lynley, her films and her... God, I forgot. Carol Lynley, her films and TV career in horror, fantasy, and suspense, and it's from McFarlane and Company, just like Dueling Harlows.
And if you want to see Carol Lynley at her very hottest and yummiest and sexiest, I sound as though I'm selling pornography. Buy Dueling Harlows, which has Carol Lynley looking magnificent in bias cut white satin and no underwear and other fun stuff. So, you're brilliant. You are. If you were writing about dinosaurs, you would be respected the world over. You write about films. No one respects films. Have you noticed?
Yeah, and I kind of write about the people who didn't get respected. That's why, like, my books are about 1960s and 70s starlets that worked with Elvis Presley in the beach movies.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
was writing about them. And
Well, Linda Evans was one of those. She
Yes.
didn't even have a big
Right,
part. Yeah.
Right. But I always felt they had interesting stories, and they do have interesting stories, and
Sure.
nobody was like tracking them down. And my friends used to joke and call me a starlet stalker, or they would say, like, when the actress gets a phone call or an email from me, like, "Oh my God, my career's over. Tom Lisanti wants to talk to me."
Whatever. But yeah, well, you know, these great ladies, these starlets, they were very courageous, because my mother was in the running to be a starlet in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me all sorts of stuff, really awful stuff. We always loved Marilyn in my family because Marilyn and my mother were born the same year.
Oh, wow.
And my mother was considered sexy too. So they had some of the same experiences. My mother said no. Marilyn said yes. Marilyn had nothing to go home to.
Right, that's true.
So anyway, but I strongly urge you to buy Dueling Harlows and Carol Lynley. What's the name of it?
Carol Lynley, her film and TV career in thrillers, fantasy, and suspense.
And what other books have you written?
I've written Hollywood surf and beach movies, The First Wave, 1959 to 1969. I've written Pamela Tiffin, From Hollywood to Rome. It's about her career in Hollywood and Rome. I wrote with Gail Gerber, who was a 60s beach and Elvis Presley starlet. She became the longtime companion of Terry Southern. So we wrote her memoir, Trippin' with Terry Southern, What I Think I Remember, which actually won us an award. I won an we won an IPPY. It's an Independent Publishers Award for Best Memoir of 2011.
Anyway, we're almost out of time, so.
Okay.
My guest has been the truly brilliant movie author, Mr. Tom Lisanti. And I say Lisanti, is it Lisanti or T?
Lisanti.
Lisanti. Oh, you're right, with an I. Duh, I'm stupid. My guest has been the brilliant movie author, friend of Tom Lisanti, and I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. I love you a lot. I'm clutching my pearls, and I will see you next time. And buy Tom Lisanti's books. They're fascinating and great. You cannot go wrong. If you love movies, you'll love his books, and if you love television too, because he also wrote about Ryan's Hope and other things.
And Texas to Come.
There you go. Do a Dark Shadows book.
They've been done.
Catherine Scott Lee, she does them all. And she's great. So there. Bye.